Welcome everybody. This is Tom Turingham from screenprintingartist.com. Go check out any of my courses there, and on Teachable you can find them. Learn more about these types of techniques, and I'd love to work with you. We're going to go ahead and do a design today that's a little bit more of a vintage design. This is real popular for t-shirts, so especially right now. So it's a fun thing to do. So let's go ahead and zoom out here. I'm going to get rid of this background, and we're working in CorelDRAW latest version. But these techniques will work in almost any version of Corel, from version all the way to 17, all the way up to the current one, and maybe even some of the older ones. I don't use a lot of the real fancy newer techniques, so just keep that in mind. What I'm going to do is we're going to design this for a gray shirt. And so I'm going to just make a real quick gray background. You can change the background of the page as well if you don't want it to be an object. I always kind of tend to prefer a background. And then one thing you can do as well, if you want the exact color of a background, sometimes it's nice to have the exact color of the shirt that you want. You can go to anywhere on Google per se and just kind of grab something real quick, and you could just put in charcoal gray shirt. And just real quick, if you wanted to know like a charcoal gray shirt, I'm just going to copy this image. I'm not going to do anything permanent with it. I'm just copying it for the reference, paste, and then just bring it up in size, and you can grab roughly the color of that gray shirt. The advantage of that being your background will be close to what that is when you're designing, so there's an advantage there. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and first thing I'm going to do, since this is going to be mostly typography, I'm going to go ahead and type out the characters in the design. So in this case, I'm going to go uppercase for part of it, and then I'll go lowercase for the other part. And then an accent on the bottom. Oops, one too many. So we'll start with this. I'll enlarge it. I'll hit Control S to save type. And then I'm going to break it apart. So Control K breaks it apart so they're all in individual rows. And then I'm going to add a font to this. Now I wanted to use an old school font, so I got a nice one off of defont.com. And definitely donate to the author if you want to use this one, because it's a nice font. Some of the other Jersey fonts just don't kern properly. This one actually kerns fairly well. It does have some minor issues, but all fonts, especially ones on defont.com, have issues, so we just work with them the best we can. Now I want to create my design, my layout. I'm going to go ahead and start on a circle, and if I want that circle to orient to the center of the page, I'm going to go ahead and CE. So when I have it selected, click on it, hit the C key, and then I hit the E key. And I can do that if I click two things here, CE, like that, or you could always just click it and hit the P key, and then it'll center to the page automatically. In that case, I'm going to drag it down a little bit, just holding the Shift key, because that'll hold it on the vertical axis so it won't slide sideways on me. And then I'm going to take this Brazilian part, I'm going to go fit text to path, and you notice when I get right on the line, it'll lock it into the path. I'm going to go ahead and enlarge it on the path, and then what I want to do is I actually want it to arc a little more, so I'm going to click my circle twice, and you'll notice that it's just on the circle. It says that at the bottom, Control Ellipse. If you just click it once, you'll get both, and it'll say text on a path. But I don't want to shrink the text, I just want to shrink the circle, so I click it twice, and that clicks in, and then I hold this, and I just drag it down. I'm going to hold the Shift key so it drags it to center and keeps it a circle. So I drop it down, and you can see how it arcs it a little more and a little more. Now that I've got my arc kind of where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and scoot this up a little bit. Again, holding the once you get it moving, whoops, I just want to click the whole thing here. Let me click the whole thing. And then once you get it moving, there, you can just make sure you didn't skew it a little bit. If you click it, there's a lot of different ways of adjusting type on a curve, so you want to be careful you don't overdo it. I'm going to go ahead and make this. I'm going to click twice, so I'm just on the type. You see that? I clicked on the type twice. So I'm just selecting the type, then I'm going to hit fill with white, and I'll make sure that down here you can see there's no outline. And I'm going to leave the outline on there just for now. I'll hit Control S to save it. And then I'm going to go ahead and set the Jiu-Jitsu in the same font. And then I want to check the size, so I'm going to click this twice, and up in the property bar you can see, when I click it here, you can see your point size, 106.169. So I'm going to click this, and I can go here, scroll, I just make it blue, and just go 106, probably 0.7 should do it, and it'll be the exact same size of the type that's arched. And then I can bring it down here. I can hold the shift key, click both, hit center, and then I center it. Now you notice I lost my little dash there, so I'm going to have to deal with that. But that's fairly common. Some of the fonts, they don't include dashes, and it'll show that there is a character there, but it's just a non-existent character. But it's easy enough to create a dash in, especially in this style. And now I'm going to expand it a little bit with the kerning. I'm going to click on my shape tool, and then automatically when you're in type mode, if you click on the shape tool, it switches to kerning, either line spacing here or current individual letter kerning here. And then if you want to do word kerning, you would hold the shift key down. But since I don't have individual separate words, it doesn't affect it. So I'm going to stretch it out just a little bit so I got a little more space. And then I let go, and then I click here. I'm going to click, and then again click there, and then hit the C key to center it. That centers it vertically this way. And then I want to add that little dash in there before I forget, because we have to have that. So just to make sure it's the same size, I'll just use my eye as a reference, and I'll click it and just kind of trap on top of that, and then I go over here, let go, click once, hold the control key, because that constrains it to 15% increments when I shift, and it'll allow me to make it perfectly straight sideways. And then I right click there, and then I might want to go a little smaller and kind of bring it down so it looks a little more centered. And then you notice, well, it's a little bit tight in here. I probably could use a little more space. So I hit the shape here, and then I just go ahead and grab these, just the jitsu part, and then I'm going to go ahead and use the nudge tool to nudge it over and give that space a little bit more room to breathe. And then if I was really concerned about having this equal, I could hit the E key and make sure it's perfectly in the center. In the case of this font, you may want to go up just a little bit, just because there's some space there, if you want to get nitpicky. I'm going to go ahead and group it. Control G after you select both. You notice I drew a marquee around both, and I hit Control G, and that made both of them group together so that it's one piece. So then if I move them both down, it moves them both. And it's still a font, so I hit C, and then you notice that's centered it this way. So now I've got this arced on the top, this in the middle, right here, like that. And then I'm going to have my other fonts here that are upper and lowercase. Now those I kind of want to arc underneath, just to kind of give it that kind of antique look a little bit. So I'm going to switch these, and I'm going to use a font like another old school font, but it's going to be like a cursive font, Kaufman bold, like that. And this font is a real common font used for lettering that you want to look kind of dated, you know, kind of older. I'm going to move it over here, and we'll zoom in a little bit. Now if I want to, again, if I want to center it, click there and hit the T key. That centers it to the top, and since there's ascenders on the top, it aligns them all. But I wanted them to be separate because I wanted them to kind of split apart here, and then I wanted them to arc. Now in the case of this is a unique case because I don't know how well this will arc, and the reason for that is if I go into wireframe mode, you'll see here how the Kaufman font, they align here on a straight line, but I think when you arc it, what's going to happen is these pieces are going to angle and they're not going to form. And just to show you that, I'm going to go ahead and do it, and then I'll do it a different way and show you how you can overcome that kind of challenge there. So I'm going to click twice, because remember it's text in a path. If I click once, click twice, let me pan up here using the middle mouse button, and then I'm going to go ahead and Control D. I'm going to duplicate, but actually, come to think of it, let me click off here. I have to make sure, okay, if you don't set here the default nudge to 0 and 0, when you duplicate something, it'll shift it off center, which I don't want. So I'm going to click here, but it's already been done on this file. So click there, second. So now it's a control ellipse. I'm going to hit Control D, and you'll notice now it's just an ellipse. So I duplicated the circle on top, and then I can grab this corner, hold the shift key, drag it down, and now I have an alignment ruler that is, you know, just a certain amount below this. And now I'm going to take this first one, I'm going to go text, fit text to path, and I'm going to go ahead and go here. Now I'm going to look, and what I want to see is if attaching this to the curve has really arced it enough to damage it. In this case, it really hasn't. See, Kaufman's pretty friendly, and it looks like it still lines up, which is actually a really good thing, because if I was to take it, and I'll show you, and I can back this up. So I'm going to click here once, and then click twice, and then I'm going to really reduce this down here. And you'll notice when you arc it a lot, what happens is, you see how it breaks there, and it sticks out, and it doesn't align. So I'll go ahead and Control Z. So since this arc wasn't dramatic enough to really damage this type, I can just use it without doing the workaround. And the workaround would be I would have to convert all this to curves and then merge it all together as an object and then arch it as an object. But fortunately I don't have to do that. So I'm going to click twice. I'm going to kind of just, I think, let's just go ahead and place this other one on here at the same size. Let me check the font size and make sure it's the same. I don't think I changed it. 33. Let me check this one. Yep, up in the property by 33. Click here, and hit text, fit text to path, and then go ahead and go over here. And I'm going to be just short of where the other one is, you see. And you can check that by dragging a center line down and kind of see if you're lined up here. I'm a little bit long on that side, but optical illusion wise, because this type is leaning, you're probably okay there and there. So if you don't want this, you can right click and you can just delete that outline. I'm going to hit Control S to save it, and then let's go ahead and look at this. Alt V E for the quick key to look at it in enhanced mode, and then you can kind of see here, is that working, is it not? Maybe this is a little bit tight here because I want to do something with that, and this font might be a little bit big. So what I'm going to do is click once, twice. Let's go ahead and bring this down to 25. Hit enter. I'm going to bring this down the same amount, 25. You just turn that 25, hit enter, and then I'm going to click this twice, and I'm just going to start moving it and then hold the shift key to constrain it to the center, and then I'll bring it down. Now I could have left this all as one piece of text, but I wanted to have them independent so I could adjust the spacing, so it's a little bit easier to do that. Now I like the size of this, or the height, because I'm going to do something else with Brazilian, but it might need to be stretched out a little bit, but for now it's okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and click here, and then I'm going to fill everything with white, even though it's going to fill this center. And then remember, I can click off, and then I can click here once, twice, and then fill that with nothing, and then I can just leave my font like that. I'm going to go ahead and save it, Control S, and I'm going to zoom out, and then we'll go ahead and start working on the rest of our fonts here. I'm going to bring this up, and since we're using Kaufman, we'll go ahead and use Kaufman on that as well. I'll bring it down here, and that's going to hover above the Jiu-Jitsu. And in the Jiu-Jitsu's case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch it just a little longer, and since it's grouped, it also stretches the middle, and then I'm going to arch it. Now I don't want to do too much. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I don't want to do too much to a font when it's an enhanced, or when it's editable font, which means when it's still text that I can edit. The reason for that is sometimes in Corel especially, or in Illustrator as well, you'll start to get errors. So I'm going to go ahead and convert it at this point, because I'm not likely to adjust it from Jiu-Jitsu. I'm not going to change it in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit Control Ungroup, and then I'm going to hit Control Q, which converts everything that was a font. You'll see in wireframe now. You'll see here, if I hover, it just says two objects. And if I click here, it's just going to say curve, and you see it shows me the nodes. Whereas before, when it was two objects here, I Control Z to back up. Then you can see it's still editable text. So what I'm going to do here is click again, ungroup, Control U, and then Control Q, and then everything's controlled to a curve, but it's still two objects. This is one, so if I move If I click this and move it, so that's one, and this is one. So to make things consistent, I'm going to hold the Shift key and I'm going to align them or together. I'm going to combine them. So that's Command L, or images combine, and now they're all one piece. So if I move them with the nudge tool, you see they move together. Alt V E to go back, and then since I stretched it longer, I might go just a little more. I'm going to go ahead and use the envelope tool, which you can open. If it's not open, you're going to click this dialog and then come down and grab it here, envelope, and then you want to hit single arc mode, and I'm going to go ahead and single arc just the top. So he kind of pulls it down, and sometimes when you pull it down it looks a little crunched in the middle, so that's when I'll kind of drag it up a little bit just so it looks like it fits roughly about the same amount as the top. And the other thing is, like, sometimes when you make it, and if you like what the size here but your endpoints are bigger than your font up here, what you can do is you can just go up here and click this once, twice, and then you can make this one a little longer by just stretching up. See that? And so you can make that font visually about the same weight as this font without distorting things too much. I'm going to go ahead and arc it just a little more, and I can do that by activating the envelope tool, and you can see it saved the envelope and even the mode that it was in, and I just arc it just a little more so I get just a little more curve out of the bottom. And then I'm going to click back. I'm going to Control S to save, and now what I can do is I'm going to do my effects on here. I'm going to go ahead and make this white. Control S again, always save in stages, and then let me zoom out a little bit. And this is kind of an old school design, as you can tell. And what we're going to do, we're going to take this, I'm going to click it once, click it twice, and see how it's I'm just on the font itself, right? And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an extrusion. So what I can do is the extrusion tool here, I click, hold it, I'm going to hold the extrude. When you click that tool now, you notice I can come up here, and you see how that box is next to the arrow? That means the extrusion is active. I try to get towards the middle because I want to extract from the middle. I'm going to go down, and now as I'm dragging, I'm holding the mouse key, and as I'm dragging, I'm going to hold the Shift key. And what that does is it constrains it. See how it constrains it to a straight line? That way it doesn't slide off center. So as you're holding the mouse key, you want to let go. And now I'm going to let go, and you notice it created an extrusion. But I want to edit this extrusion, right? Because I created my center point there. So I'm going to go ahead and go Effects, and I'm going to go down to Extrude, and that'll open the dialog box so I can edit it. And I'm going to change the depth. I want to change the depth to like 5, and I just hit the Enter key, and you see how that kind of limited it up here. And that looks pretty good. One thing I can do is I can change, if I can't really tell what it is here, you can change the fill of it after you've applied the extrusion, or you can change the fill of it with some lighting effects here. But visually, one of the things I can do a lot of times if I'm working on an extrusion is I'll add like a weird color, and then I can see where the extrusion starts and when my original, just with a quick outline. See, I right clicked and I just got a quick, and I won't leave that on, of course, because I don't want it to be pink, but it just for reference, so you can see where the extrusion is. And that's about what I want right there. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and take the outline off. I'll click again, make sure I got that. Take the outline off, and then I can, I'm going to go ahead and break this apart. So I'm going to break it apart from the extrusion. So now I got two objects selected. And see, now it's just floating. It's no longer locked to this curve. So it's no longer text on a curve. It just says text that's arched. And this extrusion below became a group of 43 objects. And I'm going to try a couple different things. Now I'm going to keep this reference circle here, but I'm just going to get rid of the outline so it's not going to be distracting. And then I can come here, and one thing I know I want to do is I want to kind of make this dark underneath so it pops a little bit. I might try an effect on that, but we'll see. I'm just going to, for now, I'm just going to set it like that and then leave it. And then these, which look a little bit small now, I can go ahead and enlarge, hold this way and enlarge up and say, there, that looks better, a little bigger. I just wanted to make sure I had room for the extrusion here. And then looking at that font size, well, 33, it's almost about the same size as it was, right? 33.5. And then I go here, click again, and I just go here, and I'll do the same thing, 33.5, and then hit enter. And then you can see that one, and then you can always move it a little bit, like it did before. here, because what I want to do is I want to put just a little dot in here probably, or a dash or something, just to make it look like it fits in there. Probably put a dot or a dash or some sort of effect in there. We can even try that now just to see how that fills up the space. We'll start with a dot, and I just click here, and then if you hold shift and then you hold control, it constrains it to the center of where you started drawing, and it makes it a circle. So let go here, and I'll make it white, and then no outline by right clicking, and then here drag it over here and then right click, and that duplicates it, and then the same thing over here. Just put it in about the same spot, just estimating. And then if you want to be perfect, you can, make sure you're roughly centered here. So this would be roughly about here, like the other one, and then this, click twice, drag it this way a little bit, and drag it up just a little bit. And you could also, pull your reference line up to make sure it was sitting on that if you want to be exactly square. I think I'm just eyeballing it right here. I think we're okay. I'm going to go ahead and delete for that guideline. Control S, save the file, zoom out, and let's look at it. And we're fortunate, like I said, because Kaufman looks like it's going to arch okay, although you see a little bit of clipping here. And again, I'm not a fan of any of that. Like, I don't like any clipping or weirdness to my type, so we're going to go ahead and fix that in a minute. But this is already, kind of coming along pretty good. I can go ahead and break this apart from the guideline. So I'm going to hit Control K, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab all this, and then I'm going to hit. There's a couple ways of doing this. I found one way that actually works really well. One thing you need to know about text, when you break it, whether you break it away from a text on a path or you just break it from a bunch of other text, if I just convert this to curves, sometimes you'll see little clips here, because it's a bunch of pieces mashed together, and then you created, like a little donut. It'll make a hole there, and I don't want that. So what I'll do is I'll hit Control K before I hit Control Q. So that'll break it into individual letters, and you see how I broke it into individual words. And then I hit Control K again, and then here Control K again, and then here Control K again. And now I want to select all this. Of course, my background's solid, so I got to go Alt V W. And now what I can do is now that these are all individual letters, you see, each one, I can grab them all now, and I hit Control Q. And the advantage to that is, like I said, each of these now is an individual curve. They aren't automatically merged together. And that's a real advantage if you have a bunch of type where there's a lot of circles or a lot of negative space, because if you merge them all together and then you got to break them all apart, then all your negative spaces become solid, and it's kind of a hassle. And in this case, what I want to do is I want to merge all these. So I'm just going to weld them all together. So I'm going to select them all, and then I'm going to hit this weld command up here. I'm going to weld them, and then I'm just going to look for little clips that I don't like. So I'm just going to zoom in here, and you can see that, right? That's what happens when you put a script on a curve. And what you can do is just pretty quickly just grab those little blips and delete them. And it should pretty much save this, as it is. And I'll just hit the pan tool, middle mouse key, to come over and see, like, that little blip there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just double click here and double click there. If you don't double click and you just delete that, it'll give you a weird averaged curve there, and I don't want to deal with it. So then hit delete, and it's still a little weird, but what I can do is I can just bump this one up, and it's minimum amount of time editing this, right? That's what you want. And you can see there's a little clip there. I can probably just delete that. And if it goes wrong, you just Control Z and deal with that. And then you can see these, right? You just delete them and delete them. And then we're good with that piece. And then we can go back and do the other one. So Control S, save it, pan over. Same process functionally, right? Click this, and then you're going to hit Control K, and then Control K. So now it's all individual pieces on that one. And select this, Control K, and then you select this one, Control K. And then now that they're all individual letters, if you hit Control Q, and I'll show you that control. I'll go back to enhance mode. You see, even now they're individual curves, but I didn't knock out my negative spaces. So that's a little workaround, which actually saves you some time. And if you have a lot of type that you're doing this to, it'll save you a lot of time, which is good. So saving time is a good thing. Anyways, here we're going to grab this, and then we're going to go ahead and weld. Now, if you saw a real bad one here, you might be able to distort this and make it line up, but I don't want to take it off arc, the right arc. So I'm going to leave it and hit weld. And then I'm just going to do the same process I did as quick as I can. Zoom in kind of tight, hit my shape tool, click on this to get the nodes, and then I'm just going to delete the nodes that I don't want. Just kind of going through pretty quick. Hit the pan tool using the middle mouse button, and you can also roll up or down with the mouse to zoom in and out. Looks like we're okay on this. This one, for some reason, probably because it's arced the other way, was fine. Let's go look at this. Actually, that's not bad, but I'm gonna average it anyways. And these look okay, and that looks okay. Although there's a little bit here, but nothing really big. And then that's it. So let's zoom out. So both sets of type arched are good. And we'll go ahead and hit save. Control S, and then Alt V E to go back. And then let's go ahead and look what we got right now. We're getting there. Let's go ahead and try to finish this up now. We need an extrusion on this bottom type, right? So what we do is hit the extrusion tool, same as we did before. Go bottom, and this time I'm going to drag up. And remember, since it's going from the center, I'm going to hit the shape so it constrains it to a vertical straight line. Drag it up, and go upper edge here. And you know you can do the depth, and we know we're about 5, and hit enter. And then again, if you need to see what's going on, you can always leave a little outline on there, which is good. You know, just kind of visually see and say, is that working? It looks like it's working pretty good. So I'm going to click here. And, you know, sometimes the characters get, like there might be a character or two, it just doesn't look right. And you might have to change it. In this case, we got lucky. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control K. And then I'll just right click to get rid of that outline. And then I'm going to go ahead and make that back extrusion, fill it with black. So you can kind of see underneath it, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and click this guideline, and then I'll just get rid of that so we don't have to see it visually. I'll hit save. Now the question is, do we want an extrusion on this lettering? Since this lettering here is still lettering, like traditional lettering here, that you can edit, and we haven't monkeyed with it yet, I'm going to go ahead and convert it first, because for some reason, again, sometimes it's the computer can lock up if you're doing text, effect on text for some reason. It has a tendency to. So I'm going to go Alt V W, and then I'll click here, and then let me get in just the right spot here so I can see it visually. And then I'll go everything selected. I'll go, remember what we did before, break it apart. I'm going to show you the difference this time just so that you can see. I'm going back to enhanced mode visually. I'm going to show, if you just go Control Q, in this version of Corel you don't see them. But what I don't know is, see, when you look at them though, if you put an effect on here, like an outline or something, you probably would see that, would be my guess. So if I come here, it may be smart enough that it's not going to show it. I'm going to go ahead and add an outline and see if you would see it. See how that's weird? And I don't like that. So to avoid that, I'm going to go ahead and go back, and then go back again. Click on this, and you see it's text again. So like I said, to avoid that little issue where you've got those pieces that overlap, Alt VW, I'm going to go, let me pan over here, I'm going to go Control K, break it into individual words, and then hit Control K again. And this one, none of the letters touch, so it doesn't really matter. So I can go Control Q, just convert it, and this one, and then the overlaps here, Control Q, and then they're individual letters, right? See? And then you can weld them, and you should be able to weld them pretty quick. And you should be a minimum of points. Sometimes I'll still, because I'm a little nitpicky, I'll still go in here and make sure there isn't anything, because if you do an outline there, you might get a little, what they have, a little flare or something, and not in a good way. So that looks fine there. I don't see a little bump there, so I'm just going to leave it. And I think we're good. There. And let's go ahead and go back out. And we want that kind of dated look to this, you know, it's kind of old school. I'm going to hit save, and I might give these a little bit of a drop shadow, just like that is, just a little pop, just to pop it off the background. Relatively easy to do. All I'm going to do is go ahead and take this, and I'll click here. Before I do it, I think I'll just go ahead and grab this and bring it down and just echo it here, just so I have it in both spots. And then let's go ahead and click, combine all these, and then I'll go Control L, combine them all. So now they're one curve, right? You have to be careful if you have too many pieces and you combine them, because sometimes it'll lock up your computer or slow it down. And then I'm going to go ahead and extrude. And since they're all welded and I took away all those little clips, it should extrude probably okay. Here, go ahead and bring it down. Remember, hold that Control key, constrain it to the center, and I'm going to let go. Now, you see how it's a different angle than this? So I'm going to zoom down here a little bit. Let me zoom out. You want to have roughly the same angle of extrusion if you can, even though see how it's really, really long, but that's okay. So you want to have roughly the same angle. That way it'll look like it works with that top piece. And in this case, I might only do 3 and hit enter, because I really don't, it's going to get really big with that tiny little text. And even that is kind of big. I might go 2. Yeah. And then let me zoom in here. And again, if you want to see where you're at, you can just add a little wonky outline. Even that's kind of big, but let's just try it. Let's try there. I'll just say Control K, no outline, and then let's just see how that looks with a little black drop shadow there. It's not bad. And then we'll go ahead and do it to this underneath. And again, that, and that. We'll click them all together, Control L. And then we'll go ahead and use the extrusion tool. This one we shouldn't have to go as far because it's not arced. So let's go ahead and here, curve, here, there, and then hold the Shift key and go up. And again, you want to have the same, roughly the same angle. And I'm just visually using, visually I'm using the same angle. Like if I drew a line from here to there, you know, that was roughly my, I'm just visually kind of eyeballing it, but if that was roughly my, here, I'll use it like that, roughly my center point. And odds are if you took this and I'll duplicate it and flip it, you'll see that roughly it aligns to that. And so when I go here, you know, you could create a guideline where your extrusion stops if you're going to be really specific and you wanted everything to line up. So here I'm just going to grab this, I'm going to click, oh, I got to be selected on it first. Grab this, click, and drag. Let's give me, oh, there we go. See, it's got to show the little extrusion as an option. And then I'll go up and see if I go to there, it should be roughly the same angle of extrusion. Here, and remember we want 2 on the top, so I'm going to go 2 there, and then Control K, and then I'll deselect, Shift, deselect the top, and then fill it with black. Now it didn't do this. Now sometimes Extrude does this. It's weird, right? There's a little error in that program. I'm going to go ahead and leave these as guides. There's a little error in the program. It was kind of acting wonky when I noticed that when I was trying to drag the extrusion, it was kind of slowing it down. So make sure you save your computer or save your file, right? Hit S, Control S, and then hit Control Z, and see how it didn't extrude it, right? Control Z. Now, why didn't it extrude it? Well, this wasn't selected and merged with that. I forgot to click them all together. So here, Control L. Now let's look. Shape. Yes, so it's one piece now. So now we can go back. So that was just that wasn't a computer error. That was a, what do they say, operator error, right? It happens. So you just adapt and overcome. All right, now you just slide this up. And again, roughly about there, because that's where you can kind of see where that's where the alignment was. And then go ahead and go to your edit tool. All right. Let's see. I was picking on the computer software and it was fine. Control K. And then deselect your top. And then make the bottom black. And then you get rid of these angled lines right there. Hit delete. Control S, save. And then we've got this. We're getting close. I mean, this would be a cool looking shirt because these vintage shirts are real popular right now. This has a little bit of depth to it, which gives it a little pop there. And now we're going to add one graphic to the center. I'm going to hit Control I to import it, and then we'll go here, and we'll just grab. And what this is now, this is a graphic of the Brazilian flag. So What we'll do though is I don't want it to be circular, so I'm going to sit Control U, ungroup. Okay, and this is just a reference that you could find online, and you can see that these are all just pieces, right? And I don't need the background, and this, we don't really need that. But what we can do, it's because it's roughly the same size as the flag, I can take this and I can kind of guesstimate here what the flag size would be, which is probably somewhere around here. About there, right about there. If I wanted to center it with this piece, I could hit the Shift key and hit there and click both of them. See these two objects, and then hit CE, and then I'll center on both. And now I can get rid of this, or I can right click actually and just fill that, copy the fill here, and then Shift page down, and then I can get rid of this circle, delete. And then I'll grab all this and then Shift page up, and then I have my flag. You notice there's clips on it though. The sides are clipped, but that's easy enough to fix. You just zoom in here, click this, and then you can either make guidelines, or you can just, a lot of times I'll just make freehand lines, you know, to kind of just use as a reference. And I just double click, and then double click here, and then just click here. And if you go into wireframe mode, like you can see, and you zoom in real tight here, and you just want this to line up. There's a bunch of ways of doing it. You could just nudge the nodes too, but sometimes when you nudge the nodes, it's hard to know where the point is, so it can get a little tricky. I'm going to draw this back, and then I can just drag this out where it lines up perfectly with that line, then this line. And now I can just, see when you do one this way, then you can just Control D, hold the Control key, flip it, and then just drag it over the other side, and then just line it up, see? And then you can take this one, hold the Shift key, this one, and this one, and then just go ahead and weld all those suckers together. And you see these little points? We don't need those points, so we'll just get rid of those. Delete, delete, and then just get rid of these. Delete. And that's a quick way to fix that little issue. And then, of course, we don't want a full color flag because this is supposed to be a tonal kind of tough guy design. So what we're going to do, this is actually going to end up being white, right? This will probably end up being black, or your shirt gray color, but for ease of use we'll just make it black. And then these are white. It's always a good idea to check your white and make sure it's the same white when you bring in clip art, because sometimes it'll give you a different white, which is weird. It'll be RGB or something. Okay, check that, so we should be fine there. This maybe could be a white outline maybe, and then it would just be filled with gray, so that would be something we can do pretty quick. But I want to change the green lettering here. You can see all this. I don't speak Portuguese, but we don't need to for this. Understand what we're doing here, and we're just going to go ahead and fill that black. Well, it's actually green, right? So that would actually be the background. So you know what, I'll select all that, and then select all this. And then if I select any stars by accident, I'll make sure I deselect those, holding the Shift key. And now I have it all, and I'll Control L and merge it all together. And I usually move it once and then undo it just to make sure I didn't select the wrong thing. Alt VE. And now what I can do is I can do one of two things. I can knock this out if I hold the Shift key, but then I would have to knock it out of both that and the background there, or I can just fill it with this background color. So if I click and drag and then I just release, it'll say copy fill here, and I do that. So now it's gray. Same thing here, copy fill. And then this, we know we want to make this maybe a white outline so it looks like a flag. Control D, I duplicate it and I bring it in here, and then I hold the Shift key just so that we can make it an exact match. I could contour it. There's a lot of ways of making a real quick line here. You can also outline it and then convert that outline to curves, but I'm just going as fast as I can here. It's not a perfect outline, but I'm just going to go ahead and Control L and then fill it with white and then get rid of the outline. And then let's go ahead and look at this. I'll go ahead and Control G, and then let's go ahead and take this and move it to the center of the page, P. And then let's go ahead and look here. Go ahead and move it up. And I already don't like the outside, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that, which is why it's nice to do things separately. I'll just click on it once and then hold the Control key. So if you go here, click, it selects your whole group. Then if you hold the Control key, you do a child selection inside the group, and just get rid of that outside. So I'm going to keep that center, and then I don't need to worry about that gray coming through. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit right there, and then I just need two more things on the outside, and then we're going to go ahead and put some effects on this and wrap it up. So star, let's go ahead and put a star. I want 5 point. It's already selected as a 5 point, so I'm going to click and drag. Again, if I hold the shift, it draws from the, makes it a perfect star, and then if I hold the hold the control, it makes it a perfect star, and then if I hold shift, it goes from the center. So I'm going to go ahead and make it big, and then I'm going to hit shape so I can kind of extend it out. And I'm going to show you a quick trick here to make it. So what we're going to do here now, I might have gone a little bit overboard with that star, so I'm going to grab this corner and just kind of drag it in a little bit, but I don't want it perfectly sharp here. So I'm going to show you a little trick for that. I'm going to make it white, but I want the star, it looks too clean there with the sharp points. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and click here, and then just real quick I'm going to control Q, make it not a star anymore, because it was a star, now it's a curve. And I'm just going to double click, and then just kind of go around and just double click before each point. That one's not quite as close, but that's okay. I'm just double click and create nodes the quick way here, and then I'm going to also do that here. Double click, just kind of not going super precise, but I'm just kind of right here. So I made all these extra nodes. Why did I do that? Well, I'm going to go here, double click, and then I'm going to convert them all to curves. And now they're all curves. So now when I get rid of, I'm going to select all the nodes I don't want, hold the shift key, so I can select just specific nodes I don't want, and then I'll select the inside ones. And then it's going to average them. And it won't be a big difference, but it'll be enough that it'll curve all those pieces. And I'll hit delete. You see how it kind of curved and rounded it a little bit? And I could, if I wanted to, make it even more rounded just by coming in here and like pushing these back to where they're not overlapping. See, they're sharp when they're there, but they're not overlapping at that position, you see? So when I push them back, that's a quick way of kind of, you know, and if you keep them on the same line, then it doesn't look awkward either. So it's a good idea to, I'm going to pan over a little bit, it's a good idea to keep them, that line, the same as you pull it back a little bit. Go up here, same thing here. Bring it back, but keep it aligned with the star, the angle of the star. And then I'll go back down and do the bottom two. The inside ones are fine because those curves aren't as noticeable as not being sharp. And again, you know, depending on the angle and the length and the far distance that you have away from the edge, you may need to adjust these manually. And see, you know, if you're going to be precise, you could draw guidelines and all that stuff. But I'm just going to be good like that. So that is a much more appealing star with fitting with this kind of old school kind of look. I'm going to do the same thing with these points as I kind of roll this out, because I don't want these to be too sharp. I want them to look kind of dated. So I'm going to hit the shift key, click, and I'm going to go double click. There we go. Then we go up here, double click everything, select them all, convert them to curves, and then we go here, hold the shift key, grab that one, not the inside ones that I created, just the outside ones, and then I hit delete. You see how that curves that? Gives it a little bit more of a kind of, you know, arced look. And again, if I want them rounded more, click here and drag them so they're not, whoops, let me go zoom in. I was too far out to really do this well. Here, and then keep it on the same line. And if they're not crossed over, then they become a lot less of a sharp point. Now see how this is kind of wobbling around and kind of affecting my line there? I'm going to undo it, and I just create an extra node here to kind of anchor it, so when I change it, it's not going to make the whole thing all wacky. And you can quickly go up here, and again, you can create extra nodes here if you want to make some anchors, and then you can click this and just make sure these aren't crossed over, just they're rounded enough that it has that old look to it. It's just a quick way of doing it. Again, same sort of thing here. I keep having to click in because I'm in a group still. Hold the control key so I can go inside the child group. Here we go. Just go down a little bit, keeping that same angle. And I got one more to do. The bottom. Bottom isn't too bad. Click this. See, it hasn't crossed a lot, but and just watch your line. Make sure it's not throwing your whole line off. See how it's throwing that off a little bit? Undo it. Create an anchor. And just draw this back. You don't want to go too far back because it's starting to look a little too curved there. You go out, and then I'm going to go ahead and save. Control S. We could try, one thing we could try here, I'm going to ungroup this and just see if it works. Click this, Control D, I duplicated it on top, then Control page down twice, and then I'm going to hold the Shift key, expand it out, and just see what it would look like if I made a black background on it. Actually kind of looks cool, so I might leave that. You never really tell, and I could make it look extruded too if I wanted to by just skewing the top and bottom. So I just hold the Shift key and then just skew just the top and bottom a little bit, and then I could squeeze it to the sides. See if it would give that a little bit of a extruded look, just a little bit. Don't know if I like that, so I'm going to undo it and just leave it. Okay, and then this here, we're going to do is we're going to just take this over. I'm going to right click. It might be a little big. The star might be just a little big. Let me bring it down. Bring it down in size, drag it over, drag it over. I'm holding the Shift key to keep it on a line. And then I click on both. I'm going to group it. And I click here and hit the C key to center them. And then I drag it down. Optically, it may look a little weird because there's some extra space here, but that's okay. I want them aligned with this center point, though. And I want this center point kind of aligned. See how it's closer here than it is there? So I'm going to regroup all that middle stuff. Make sure I just grab that. Control G. Then I'm going to bump that up, nudge it up so it's really centered. I'm looking at just an equal distribution of space here and here. And then these, we'll just go up. Again, same sort of thing, kind of equal distribution of space. Maybe the top line of these stars aligned with that. And then I can extrude these. Maybe I'll go a little bigger. Again, just being a little nitty-gritty. I'm going to click here and then click Control and just move this in a little bit. And then click on both. Hit the C key, centered. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ungroup them, and I'm going to go ahead and extrude this. So I'm going to hit the extrude key. I'm going to click here. I'm going to go over to about to the center point of the design right here, and let it go. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to do like 4. See how that works? That might not be enough. Maybe we'll go 6. Hit enter. And if we're wondering what it is, you can right-click and make a. That's not bad. Looks about right. And then the same thing here. Now, one thing I could do is just grab this and flip it if we wanted the exact one. As a matter of fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to make this an outline and not fill it. And then I'm just going to take this one, take the outline off. Just that way I'll get it perfect, because otherwise, whoops, otherwise what will happen, let me just make that, yeah, let me click on both. Yeah, it's still an extrude group, so you gotta hit Control K. That's why I was having trouble here. Click that here. And I'll go ahead and grab this, Control Group, group them together, and then I'm just gonna grab it and then just hit the right mouse key when I go there, and then I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to match it up right on that star, or at least pretty close, and I'll know I'll be close, and then I can grab this and then hold the Shift key, deselect, and then delete. And if I want to be real nitpicky, I can grab both of these and group them, and then click this and then center. But we're right on the money there. Now, pretty much have my design here. I'm done. It's relatively simple, but it has that antique feel, which we like. But now we want to distress it. So I'm going to do a quick distress filter on this design. So I'm going to hit Control S, save it, and then I want to bring in some distress filters. So Control I. I'm going to go to, and I've got some of these that I downloaded from FreePick. There's other, you can grab other distress filters online as well. These are kind of cool. So we'll try this texture first. Double click this. There's a couple different ways of doing this. I'm not going to bring in the EPS because see, the EPS is huge and it's probably made for illustrators, and in CorelDRAW it's probably going to give you a heart attack. So I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to go ahead and import just the bitmap Because you see, if I brought that in as vector pieces, it might lock up my computer, which would really make me bummed out. So you can see how there are different grayscales here. I'm going to save it. It's a 300 dpi bitmap. It's pretty big, but it's got some different textures on it, which could be kind of cool. So let's go ahead and take this bitmap, and then we can I usually save my file, and then what we can do is I'm going to copy this and delete it, and then I'm going to make an extra page. I'm going to go ahead and Control V and paste it to the second page. So I got a clean version of this, and then I'm going to select all, copy, Control C, and then Control V, paste it, and then this one will be a distress version. And what I'll do is I'll just click everything here. Oh, it's still artistic text. Well, let's go ahead and just grab everything and Control Q. You can do that when it's objects, and it makes anything in the design that's a text is now a curve. And I want to do that before I do anything funky like embed a power clip into the text or anything weird. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it down here. And see, it's got some gray values and some other things that are kind of fun going on. It's an RGB, and I want to make sure that it is first converted to grayscale. That'll give me less issues when I go to separate. So you didn't see any change except down here it said grayscale. In the image you probably didn't see any unless there was some blue or something, but I don't think there was. So then I'm going to take this and I'm going to go Object, Power Clip, Place Inside Frame, and I'll go boom, and I'll put it in there. And you can kind of see how it got kind of roughed up a little bit in some spots. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into the power clip by holding Control, and I'll click twice. And I might want to shrink it just so that there's more of the kind of roughed up stuff having around the edges. Let's go ahead and zoom out so you can see some of it going on in there. And then if I want these to echo that, a quick way of doing it is I just got to make sure everything's ungrouped. So I'm going to select everything here. Unless you want it to be part of the same power clip, I'm going to just make it easier and just ungroup it. These two I can combine, Control L, so they're part of the same. And then what I'll do is I'll click this. Essentially anything that's white, I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to go power clip, and then I'm going to say copy power clip from. I'm going to pop that in. You see how it puts the same power clip in there? This, same sort of thing. This, I'm just right clicking just to check and see, because sometimes there's some weirdness with clip art, but it looks like this is okay. So I'm just going to go here, clip, power clip, and I'm going to say copy power clip from. Let's go from there. And you see how there's an edge to that? It didn't center the power clip on my object, so I click, it left it where it was. So I'm going to kind of drag it off here and just give it a little bit more of that. If that makes sense. And if you wanted to get real particular, you could insist the power clip came through on this piece as well. I just have to see if it's on top, and it is. So you could, if this is just a solid black piece, I could do a couple of things. I could just enlarge it a little bit. This might be the quickest way, and just hold the Control key there and just trim it. And then going back to here, just click it and then just delete the white, and then you'll get that fade in there. I'm not going to worry about the stars. They're fine. If I was real nitpicky, I'd go in there and correct them, but I think we're fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and here, I'm going to go this, click. And again, same sort of thing. Object, power clip, copy power clip from. We could quick key through that whole thing. Oops, there. I clicked on the wrong object. We'll click here, click again, go in there, and so you just got to slide it down. You can see where the blue edge is. You just need to pass that there. And I really like that, where it got dirty there. That looks really cool. So that's what I want. And this and the fonts here, same thing. Let's just do it kind of quick. Power clip. Now you could, the reason I'm doing this in pieces is my power clip wasn't that big. So it looks like it's centered okay. I could click there and just click again and see where it put the power clip. Let me zoom out here. Sometimes I notice sometimes in this version of CorelDRAW, if you power clip in like that, sometimes it won't show you the power clip right away. And you can kind of see where it is here. If I wanted to dirty it up, I could just move it up just to make more grit to be in there, or I could move it over to here. But I think we're okay. Here, this, just make sure it's one piece, one curve, yes. And we'll go same thing. Object, power clip, copy. Let's go ahead and go from there. and click again, and then click one more time. And again, I want to just have a little bit more distress on it, right? And this is a distress. Now I'm going to save this, Control S, I'm going to save it, and then I got one more distress to add, so Control I. I'm actually going to do a double distress on this, so I'm going to go here, and I've got this. I'm going to go ahead, and again I'm going to bring in this as a bitmap here, and what I'm going to do is this gritty thing, or this is a much heavier distress, right? I wouldn't want to knock this out, but for what I want to do is I really want to distress my black just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to use this. I'm going to convert this to a monochrome bitmap, because I brought it again in pieces. We wouldn't want to take all those pieces and then embed them in all these pieces, right? That would be kind of a nightmare. So I'm going to Control S, save my file. Click here, we're going to go ahead bitmap, and we're going to go to mode, and we're going to go black and white. I'll say convert to 1 bit. We can zoom in a little bit if we want to see, but it looks pretty good. And I'm not going to do halftone, I'm going to do line art, just so it forces anything gray to be either black or white. Threshold, leave right in the middle is fine. Looks like it's okay. And I'm going to say okay. And now what I can do is I can delete the fill, which will be the white, and this I can make, let's say, I'll right click and I'll make it 90. So it's not 100% black, but it's a variation of black. And then within that, I can make this smaller, just so it's a little gritty. Bring it up. And it'll look like that. And then what I can do is I can use this as a fade to go in my black. Now, one little issue with this is when you have an extrusion, right, and there's all these pieces, you may get in a situation where your whole extrusion is just a jillion pieces. Now we're fortunate because we did this font, there's probably not that many pieces. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, anything that's white, I'm going to select, I'm going to go ahead and go here, here, and here. I'm going to group it. Make sure I didn't do anything weird. And if you're not sure, you can hit delete key and see if you didn't group everything. It looks like I didn't. Ungroup, grab the stars. It says 4 objects. Let me click 5. Okay, yeah, they're one piece, so that's why. And then I'll group it, Control G. I don't want to combine them because then that'll screw up all my power clips in there. And then what I can do now, let me delete them to see. Yes, looks good. I'll worry about the centerpiece separately. And then what I can do is I can even hold the Control key and move everything off. And then what I can do is this, if this is one piece, it doesn't look like it is. So I'm going to do is I'm going to select just the middle and try not to grab anything else. See, I grabbed everything else? Okay, we'll do it this way. Control wireframe, zoom in. I'm just going to grab all the stars and then hold the shift key. Let's click here, and then group. And then I'll zoom out. That way, Alt V E, and I should have selected everything in the middle. I can drag it and undo it. Okay, and then now I can select all this that was extruded, all of it, and then I hold the shift key, deselect the middle, and now all these pieces. Now, sometimes you can weld all these together into one big piece, which would be ideal for this, but the problem is sometimes it also locks up the computer. So I'm going to hit Control Save. I've got all these selected, 248 objects. We could try to weld it. Might work. Might weld. It might get weird because these pieces are really close and sometimes there's little pieces in there. So if I go wireframe, you'll see how many little pieces there are, especially on these little letters. The problem is when those clips get really close to each other and it's going to weld all these little pieces, it might not do it. So 2 ways of dealing with this. One way is to, like I said, try to weld it, right? And roll the dice, see if you get lucky. We can do that. The other way, which is a lot safer, is to go bitmap, convert to bitmap. You can do 300 or 600. A lot of times I'll do 300 grayscale, and I'll say okay. And then it converted this to a bitmap. Now I'm going to undo it, Control Z, and I'm going to go bitmap, convert to bitmap. I'm going to convert it to grayscale, but what I'm going to do is no transparent background. And another thing, so I'm going to go OK, and now you can see it can read it to, and you might be like, well, why did you do a bitmap? Well, first I want to look at, see how there's these little gray lines in here? That means the pieces weren't exactly mapped onto each other. So I'm going to undo it. Now I still got 248 pieces, so I'm going to, and they're filled with, well, it says several fills, so let's go ahead and fill them all with, let's go with RGB black. Whoops. Oh, I got the circle, see? Okay, Alt V W. Let's go ahead and get rid of these circles. Click this and delete, and then click this. So for sure, if we would have welded it, it would have got wonky because those circles would have tried to get welded with everything else. And there's those pieces down there, so Alt E. Now we can try it again. Let me zoom out here. And a quick way of doing it would just be grab everything, hold the Shift key, deselect the middle. Whoops. Here, grab everything, hold the Shift key, deselect the middle, group everything, and then I'm going to fill it with all black, and then I'm going to do a tiny little pen line outline and everything to get rid of those little gray pieces. Now if we're going to convert to grayscale, another thing you can do here is go here, double click, open your fill palette, and then click where it says CMYK, and then go to grayscale, and then pick solid black in grayscale, and then say OK, and you'll notice it get darker. And then the other thing you can do is double click here, pick your color of outline on everything, and then pick the same color, solid black, in grayscale. And well, why do we want to do that? Because now, whoops, still didn't work. Probably just did the one object. Alright, let me show you a workaround for that. I want to convert them all. So I'm going to go fill it. I'm going to do the outline, fill it. So now, you see it's solid black, and grayscale. I'm just going to drag this over and drop it, and I'll say copy fill outline to group, and then it does all the group. That's just a little workaround if it starts playing hardball with you and you can't get everything to convert. Now, click here, bitmap, convert to bitmap, grayscale 300 is fine, say OK. You might be like, oh, well, why'd you do that? Well, now what I can do is I can trace it. And I'm going to trace it outline, detailed logo, reduce bitmap. I can reduce the size a little bit, and it's going to we'll go colors, and just go grayscale, and these can be merged. Just merge two, so make sure it's black and white. So white's 250, 250, that's right. This, though, we're going to go here. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to edit that color, and I just want it to be gray. I'm going to say OK. So 255 gray, and I'm going to say OK. And well, why did I do that? Well, when this traces it, now I can get rid of my bitmap. And now when I traced it, all those extruded pieces, I'm going to delete it. All these extruded pieces now are a group of 67 objects, but they are no longer 248, right? And I can make them all black like they were, right? And then I can take this piece right here, that is my distress filter. I'm going to drag it down and then right click, and I don't mind that little overlap, that's okay. So click that, I'm going to group that, shift page down, and I'm going to go object, power clip, place inside frame. I'm going to put it in there, and now you see I power clipped that distress into all of those extrusions in one shot, and that's a lot easier. And then I can just take that those middle pieces and real quick just click this object, power clip, copy power clip from, I'll just go here, whoops, oh, because they were grouped, my bad, I'll undo it, whoop, Control Z, let me zoom out, it's giving me an error, hopefully I'm not locked up, 1 second here. And see, that's the risk of doing too much with power clips here. Let's zoom out. Okay, let's go here. So move it back, undo, undo, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, 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 Z. And now let's zoom in and see. It's still giving me this error. It's not liking something. Let's see. This. Oh, okay. Control. Let me just hold the Shift key. Grab this and delete. Yeah. Okay. Try this again. Convert all this to black. One more time, guys. And then drag this down. Right click. Group them both. Put them to back. Shift page down. And then we go Object, Power Clip. Place inside frame. Here. Put it all in there all at once. And then all I have to do now to do this correctly, Control Ungroup. 31 objects. Go in here, zoom in. I want to do this in one shot, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this. I'm going to Control Save, Control S, this, and my piece here. I'm going to knock this piece out of this. So Control L. Whoops. So this. So now it's like a donut, because when I pull my bottom out, it's right there. And now my bottom piece is separate. So now that can be Object, Power Clip. Copy Power Clip from, place it right there, clip, and see it pop that in. And now, should be good. Let me zoom out. I know this is a lot of power clips and stuff going on here, but we're almost done. I'm going to go ahead and pan this way. Whoops, I think I moved that background. So let me change my wireframe. There we go. And now I can just click on this white top color and pan over, and Control pop it back in place, and then Alt V E. Let's take a look, and there's my design with my distress. Now if I wanted it to be darker, if I wanted more of a distress to this, I could always go ahead and save it, and go into each one of these pieces. So I could go into this one, and then I could edit, and that'll edit the distress filter that's in there. So I went into the power clip now. If I wanted it a little darker, it'll take a little while to rebuild this probably. Let me zoom out a little bit. Sometimes you got to zoom out and then zoom back in. And when you get the power clip up, let me kind of click here, click that power clip. Let me zoom in so you can see it. Sometimes, like I said, in power clip, it takes a little while to refresh everything, which I think is what's happening here, because it's showing all the other power clips behind it. Now, see, if I wanted more, I guess, intensity to this distress, I would go Effects, Adjust, Tone Curve. Here, let me reset that tone curve because that's not what I want. And then I gotta wait for it to refresh here, and then I can take my midpoint and I can make it darker. And you see how that really kind of grunged it up, and I could say okay, and then I can go out here, click, and then just hit finish. And that would be a way to add, you know, if I wanted to add more grunge to it, you know, where it knocked it out. And this is a way to kind of create a vintage design, typography sort of design. And you can always update this, you know, like I could pull this one and copy it and just quickly copy it to these other ones if I wanted to add a little bit more grunge to it. But I'm going to hit Control S and save it, and then this should be ready to go. You could separate this now and send it to a printer, and you'd have a really cool shirt, especially if you did it in water-base. Print it in water-base or discharge so it was really soft, and you could choke some people out with it. So let me know if you like this video in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe below. Thank you very much.